Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. Robert Sinclair sat in his office, surrounded by modern paintings and Italian leather furniture. Every evening, he gazed out the large bay window of his Manhattan apartment, observing the city life below. His housekeeper, Maria Johnson, visited his luxurious apartment every morning and evening. A discreet woman, always smiling, who never complained and did her work diligently. That evening, as she left the building at 6:30 p.m., Robert felt a strange curiosity. He wondered what she did after hours. Was she simply a single mother going home, or did she have a life he didn't know about? Without thinking too much, he decided to follow her. Maria quickly descended the stairs, her broom and bag of household items in hand. Robert followed at a distance, trying to remain inconspicuous. She crossed streets he never frequented, modest neighborhoods, far from his chic restaurants and luxury boutiques. Her path finally led her to a small, dilapidated community center, barely lit by a few fluorescent lights. Through the window, Robert saw Maria smiling and welcoming children, distributing hot meals and giving them advice. The woman he knew as a simple employee was in reality a silent hero, dedicating her life every night to helping those no one saw. Robert's heart sank. He had always judged by appearances, but what he discovered exceeded anything he had imagined. That night, something changed in him. A question arose: how could he, with all his money and influence, remain a spectator to what she was doing alone? The next morning, Robert couldn't help but think back to what he had seen the day before. Maria wasn't just his housekeeper, she was different. Her determination, her smile for the children, her generosity, all of it fascinated him. He knew he had to know more. After a monotonous day at the office, Robert made an impulsive decision. He would follow Maria again, but this time, he wanted to understand what motivated her. At 6:30 p.m., as planned, Maria left the building, her broom hooked to her bag, walking purposefully. Robert slipped behind the shadows of the buildings, careful not to be noticed. They passed through neighborhoods he knew only by name, far from the skyscrapers and chic cafes. Robert realized how disconnected he was from the reality of the city. Every street corner seemed to tell a story of struggle, silent effort, and resilience. Finally, Maria arrived at a metal door, worn by time. She entered a code, then entered. Robert remained hidden behind a lamppost, curious but cautious. Inside, he discovered a room filled with laughing children, simple toys, and tables laden with hot meals. Maria knelt to speak to a crying little boy, then distributed sandwiches with a warm smile. Robert felt a mixture of admiration and shame. His entire life of luxury seemed insignificant compared to the simplicity and grandeur of his actions. He realized he had underestimated Maria, as he had with so many other things in his life. As he watched, he made an inner decision: he had to know her as something other than her employee. He had to understand her world, and perhaps, in some way, help her change it. The next evening, Robert couldn't wait any longer. He had to find out what Maria really did after hours. This time, he followed his instincts with a new intensity, walking at a cautious distance but with his eyes wide open. Maria, faithful to her ritual, walked through the same humble streets, greeting the shopkeepers she knew. But this time, Robert noticed something he hadn't seen the day before: her attention to detail, her comforting smile for the children she passed on the street, her way of bringing joy to people even in the surrounding poverty. They arrived in front of the small community center. The door creaked as she entered, and Robert remained hidden in the shadows, watching. Inside, he discovered a world entirely different from the one he knew, a simple room, but filled with love and generosity. Maria welcomed each child as if they were her own brother or sister. She patiently distributed meals, explained simple reading and math lessons, and offered encouragement to those who seemed discouraged. Robert felt a lump form in his throat. Every smile she offered, every kind word she spoke, contrasted with his world of cold wealth and impersonal transactions. The woman he thought he knew wasn't just his housekeeper, she was a silent heroine, a light in the lives of those no one saw. As he watched, a little boy fell down crying. Maria immediately bent down, took him in her arms, and spoke to him gently. Robert understood that what he was seeing was not just help, it was an act of pure devotion, a selfless commitment to humanity. He knew at that moment that his life had changed. He could no longer see Maria as he had before. She deserved respect, admiration, and perhaps his help. Robert made an inner decision: he had to connect with her, but not as her boss. He had to understand her world and learn from her silent greatness. The next morning, Robert Sinclair awoke with a strange restlessness. Every thought returned to Maria and what he had discovered. Her luxury, her lavish parties, her yachts and cars, everything suddenly seemed superficial. Faced with Maria's authenticity and generosity, he felt almost ashamed. At the office, his colleagues talked about numbers, contracts, and profits as if they were the only reality that mattered. But Robert wasn't really listening. His mind was elsewhere, imagining Maria's life, her dedication to the children, the way she brought light where there was only darkness. That evening, he went back to Maria's apartment building, this time without immediately following her. He pondered, how could he approach a woman whose private life he had unwittingly observed? How could he make himself accepted without appearing intrusive or condescending? Finally, he made a courageous decision: he had to present himself not as her employer, but as someone willing to understand and help. Robert knew that his money could make a difference, but he didn't want to use it to buy her respect. He wanted to earn her trust. As Maria was driving home from work, Robert got out of his car and gently approached her. "Maria. I know this is strange, but I would like to talk to you about something." Maria looked at him, surprised and suspicious. She still didn't know if she could trust him. Robert felt his heart sink. Every word, every gesture would count. He had to show that he was not just a boss, but a man capable of humility and sincerity. It was in that moment of silence, heavy with uncertainty, that Robert understood that his life had just taken an irreversible turn. A simple encounter could change everything, if he could prove himself worthy of the trust he wanted to earn. A few days later, Robert plucked up his courage. He sent a message to Maria, inviting her to meet him to discuss a project he wanted to support. Maria, cautious and suspicious, hesitated, but finally agreed, curious to understand his intentions. They met in a modest cafe, far from the luxurious offices and upscale restaurants of Manhattan. Robert had chosen this location deliberately, to demonstrate that he wanted to speak as equals, without hierarchy or social distance. "Maria, thank you for coming," he began, searching for words. "I wanted to tell you that what you're doing for these children, it's incredible. I realize I've never really seen your world. And I'd like to help you, if you'll allow me." Maria looked at him closely. She wasn't sure if his words were sincere or simply a superficial gesture of philanthropy. But something in Robert's tone, in his humble and honest gaze, inspired confidence in her. I don't know what to say, Mr. Sinclair. Children, what I do, it's not for recognition. I'm just doing what I can." "I know, Maria. And that's exactly why I want to help. Not to show off, but so that you can do even more. I want to support your center, your projects, and if you agree, work alongside you." Maria felt her emotions flooding through her. She was usually reserved, cautious around money and power. But in Robert's eyes, she saw a sincerity she had never imagined. After a long silence, she nodded. "Okay. But only if you understand that it's not just a donation of money. You have to really want to get involved." Robert smiled, a glint of respect and admiration in his eyes. "I want to learn, Maria. I want to understand your world. And if I can help, even a little, I will." It was the beginning of an unexpected partnership, but above all, a relationship based on mutual respect. Robert had discovered a world he hadn't known existed, and Maria was beginning to believe that a man from her world could truly want to make a difference, without ulterior motives or conditions. A few weeks passed since the meeting in the cafe. Robert became fully involved in Maria's community center. He didn't just provide funds, he spent time with the children, helped organize activities, and learn to understand the reality of their lives every day. Maria watched this man, who had always lived in luxury, get his hands dirty helping hungry or traumatized children. She was impressed by his sincerity and his desire to change. This wasn't just a philanthropic gesture. Robert truly wanted to learn and be part of this world he had ignored for so many years. Thanks to these resources, the center was able to renovate. The dilapidated walls were repainted in bright colors, new books and toys arrived, and a small library was created. The children, amazed, discovered a place where they felt valued and safe. Robert and Maria worked side by side, organizing educational, reading, and music workshops. Their bond grew, based on respect and mutual admiration. Robert learned each child's individual stories, their struggles, their dreams, and Maria guided him to understand how best to provide effective support. One evening, as the children laughed around an improvised fire roasting marshmallows, Maria looked at Robert and said, "You know, you're different from other adults I've known. You're not just trying to impress. You're here for them, and for that, I respect you." Robert smiled, feeling an emotion he had never felt before. He understood that true wealth was not measured in bank accounts or luxury cars, but in the impact one had on the lives of others. For Maria, Robert was no longer just her employer or a wealthy stranger. He had become a partner in her mission, an ally in her fight to provide a better future for children. And for Robert, Maria was no longer just an employee. She had become a source of inspiration, a model of courage and generosity. This mutual transformation marked the beginning of a new life, where each had learned to look beyond appearances and value what really mattered. A few months had passed since Robert had become involved with the center. The once simple and dilapidated space had become a haven of light and safety for the neighborhood children. Maria, as dedicated as ever, led the activities with efficiency and warmth, and Robert continued to learn from her every day. But this nascent success also attracted skeptical eyes. Some parents and neighborhood residents doubted Robert's intentions. To them, a wealthy businessman involved in a community center was nothing more than a facade, a gesture designed to gain a positive media profile. Maria sensed this distrust and feared that her mission was being compromised. One evening, after a busy day, she confided her worries to Robert. "They all think you're here to show off. That it's a public relations stunt." Robert nodded. "I know, Maria. But it's not what people think that matters. It's what we do for these children. And I'm not here to show off. I'm here for them, and for you." Maria felt her heart warm. She had always believed that wealthy adults were superficial and incapable of true generosity. But Robert had changed that idea. He had shown that respect and compassion could come from any social background. Their bond grew even stronger when Robert proposed an unexpected initiative, organizing a cultural and educational exchange program for the children, offering them opportunities they could never have imagined. Maria, initially surprised, quickly realized that her vision and Robert's determination could make an even greater difference. As the weeks went by, she saw Robert become involved with heart and humility, sitting with the children, listening to their stories, and sharing simple but precious moments. The respect she had for him transformed into sincere admiration. That evening, as she left the center after a long day, Maria turned to Robert and said with a smile, "I didn't think a man like you could understand, and do so much." "Thank you." Robert replied simply, but with deep emotion. "Thank you for showing me what it really means to help. I just followed your example." For Maria and Robert, mutual respect and trust were now unshakable. Together, they had discovered that true greatness lies not in wealth, but in actions that transform the lives of others. Everything seemed to be going well at the community center. The children were laughing, learning, and the place had become a safe haven. But one evening, an unexpected event disrupted this tranquility. As Robert and Maria were preparing a reading activity for the children, a man in a dark suit entered the center. His stern expression and cold gaze contrasted with the warm atmosphere. He introduced himself as a municipal inspector, there to verify the legality and safety of the activities. "I need to make sure your facilities are up to standard. And that your funding is legitimate," he said in an authoritative voice. Maria felt a shiver of fear. Although she had always respected the rules, the presence of an official representative reminded her of the fragility of their project. Robert, for his part, remained calm. His business experience allowed him to maintain his composure, but he could see the tension on Maria's face. During the inspection, the man seemed skeptical of Robert's presence. He asked persistent questions about the money he had invested and his motives. Robert explained sincerely, he wasn't there to brag, but to support the center and learn from Maria. The inspector, visibly impressed by their organization and the transparency of the accounts, ended up smiling slightly. I see you're both sincere. But I warn you, any deviation could put your center in danger. Once the man left, Maria let out a breath of relief and turned to Robert. Thank you for holding the situation together. Without you, I don't know if I would have been able to stay calm. Robert placed a hand on his shoulder, with a reassuring smile. We are a team, Maria. No matter the obstacles. As long as we stay united and honest, nothing can stop us. This ordeal, though stressful, strengthened their partnership. Maria realized that Robert wasn't just a benefactor, he was a true ally, ready to face challenges alongside her. And for Robert, this situation confirmed that helping wasn't just about money, it also meant standing alongside those fighting for the good of others. A few weeks after the inspection, a new challenge arose, more subtle but equally trying. A competing charity, jealous of the success of Maria's center, began to sow seeds of doubt in the neighborhood. Rumors circulated, suggesting that Robert was using his wealth to manipulate Maria or control the center for personal gain. Maria, who had always prided herself on her independence and integrity, felt betrayed and vulnerable. She feared that the townspeople and even some of the children's parents were beginning to doubt her intentions. Robert, aware of the impact of these whispers, sought to reassure her. One evening, after the center closed, Maria confided her fears to Robert. I never wanted the center to depend on someone like you. I want it to remain our space, for us and for the children. Robert nodded, respecting her feelings. Maria, I understand. I never want to take control or replace you. I'm here to support you, not to boss you around. Everything we do is together. Despite his words, Maria remained suspicious. She feared the rumors would spread and harm the children. Robert then decided to show his sincerity in another way. He organized a meeting with parents and members of the neighborhood, openly explaining his approach and highlighting Maria's role. He let every word, every idea, come from her, confirming that he was only a supporter, never a leader. By the end of the meeting, parents and residents alike could see the truth. Maria was the heart of the center, and Robert was its staunch ally. Distrust turned to admiration, and the rumors gradually died down. Maria, moved, looked at Robert. I guess I was wrong, you weren't there for me or to show off your riches. You were really there for them, and for me. Robert smiled softly. Exactly. And I'll always be here for that, as long as you want. This ordeal strengthened their trust in each other. Maria understood that Robert's support was not conditional, and Robert realized that true help required patience, respect, and humility. Together, they had overcome the first attack on their mission, and their bond was growing stronger than ever. As the months passed, Maria's community center became a success story in the neighborhood. Children thrived thanks to the educational, artistic, and athletic workshops. Families, previously skeptical, now saw tangible changes in their children's lives. Robert and Maria worked hand in hand, and their partnership grew stronger every day. One morning, Maria received an unexpected call. A national philanthropic foundation had heard about their center and wanted to fund an expansion program. The funds would help open a new classroom, hire qualified teachers, and create a support program for teenagers. Maria was overwhelmed. She had never imagined that their small center would become a national reference. Robert, enthusiastic, took her by the shoulders and said, "Do you see what we've accomplished together? It's all thanks to you, Maria. But now we have the opportunity to help even more children." Maria smiled, moved but realistic. "Yes, but we must remain cautious. Money can change everything, but it must never make us lose our focus. Robert nodded. I promise you, Maria. Everything we do is for the children and the community. Nothing more. They worked tirelessly to integrate funds and resources into the center, ensuring that the original spirit of the place, warmth, individual attention, and dedication, remained intact. The children discovered new activities, such as art, music, and computers, and their enthusiasm grew every day. This unexpected success also attracted the attention of the local media. Maria, usually discreet, was invited to share her story. Robert stayed back, letting the spotlight shine on her. For the first time, Maria realized that her simple life and quiet actions had touched far more people than she had ever imagined. This chapter in their lives marked a collective victory. They had overcome mistrust, rumors, and obstacles, and now had the chance to change even more lives. Their bond, built on respect, trust, and sincerity, had never been stronger. As the years passed, Maria's community center became a vital resource. Dozens of children found refuge, an education, and a future they could never have imagined. Maria and Robert, united by their shared experience and commitment, had become more than just partners. They were friends, mentors, and accomplices. One evening, during a ceremony to celebrate the center's 10th anniversary, the children prepared a surprise. Photos, drawings, thank you notes, and a short video retracing their progress. Maria, moved to tears, looked at Robert beside her. Look what we've accomplished together, she whispered. Robert, his heart heavy with emotion, replied. No, Maria. You accomplished that. I only followed and supported you. You are the real hero. The children, laughing and clapping, came to surround Maria and Robert. Each had a unique story, but all had one thing in common: their lives had been transformed by love, generosity, and dedication. Maria spoke before the assembly. This center is not just a building or a project. It's a family, a place where every child can dream and feel safe. And it's thanks to you, to Robert and each of you, that we were able to achieve this. Robert added with humility. And remember, it's not wealth or power that changes the world. It's the actions, sincerity, and heart we put into what we do. As the evening drew to a close, Maria and Robert found themselves alone for a moment in the large room decorated with drawings and smiles. I would never have believed that a simple gesture of curiosity, that evening when you followed me, said Maria, her voice full of emotion. Robert smiled softly. Would change both of our lives. And the lives of so many others. They looked at each other, knowing that their meeting had created a legacy far more precious than any material wealth, a place where generosity, trust, and love had transformed lives. And in that moment, Robert finally understood that true greatness resides in people's hearts, not their bank accounts. The center continued to shine, as did Maria and Robert's influence on the children and the community, a living testament that respect, humility, and commitment could truly change the world.